to look at us like the enemy. They are taught to question me, to disobey me, and still, I risk my life for these people every day for 7 years. I've allowed myself to be disrespected and hated by these people, all to protect them from themselves. I mean, all I hear about on the news are dirty cops. Cops who shoot innocent black kids. It's crap! There were 84 murders in this city last year. Were all of those cops shooting innocent black boys? Hell no. Those were blacks turning guns on each other, and yet somehow I'm the animal. Brandon Parker is dead because he didn't have respect. Because those people out there who are chanting, crying over his body, they didn't teach him the right values. They didn't teach him respect. He didn't respect me. He didn't respect my badge. Questioning my authority was not his right. This blood is not on my hands.
Welcome back to Essence Debates Now. You just watched a clip from the March 5th episode of Scandal. Often, art imitates life, and joining me to discussion on the discussion of the ongoing tension between the police force and the citizens they serve are former Mayor Eldridge Hawkins Jr. and rapper David Banner, who is on Skype. Mayor Eldridge, I want to get your thoughts and opinions on the scene that we just saw from Scandal.
Well, I think that scene is indicative of how some law enforcement officers feel about the resentment that they get from the communities in which they serve. Sometimes you might have select individuals that are doing the wrong thing, but I think in large part, most of law enforcement is doing the right thing, yet the community tends to paint all of law enforcement with an ugly brush, if you will, and lashing out at them when the overwhelming majority of them are doing the right thing. So I think that speaks to some of that resentment of getting pushback from the same people you're trying to help and serve.
And what do you recommend the community do? Do you think there's a different way that we should interact or engage?
Well, absolutely. I think from the administrative side, having been mayor, one of the things that we worked on was engaging the community through specifically community policing, block watch groups, interacting with them so that the officers knew the kids on the street, so that perhaps that personal relationship might allow them an opportunity to diffuse the situation rather than escalating up the force or the level of force that they could utilize. So that's one way. But I think that also we have to realize that people, when they're in the street, they have to follow the instructions of the officers. So many times we see situations spiral out of control because the individual that is dealing with the police officer feels that they're being wronged. Okay, and it's not for me to say right now whether they are being wronged or they're not. But on that street, they need to follow the orders of the officer. And if the officer is doing something wrong, then after that, they can go to internal affairs, they can file litigation. But again, too often we see incidents in the street where that resistance, that failure to comply, causes things to spiral out of control.
Now I have to flip that question back. What about police learning how to communicate within those communities?
Well, I think that there's a role for that, too. There has to be in-house training. And again, building those relationships, working with community leaders, whether that's ministers, whether that's parents, PTAs, getting the police as much as possible in a non-confrontational setting to interact with the people of that community. And also having a force that is in many ways reflective of the community it's serving. Diversity is key. If you have a blended community, you should have a blended police force.
Thank you. And we also have David Banner, who is now joining us on Skype. Mr. Banner, thank you so much for joining us today. What are your thoughts on the clip that we just watched, as well as Eldridge's response?
Well, I didn't see the clip, but I heard the clip. This is what I say. The problem is this. It's everybody's making excuses for cops. Nobody's making a cop be a cop. That is your job. Our tax money is going to that. It's like in the situation in Baltimore, everybody is trying to find reasons why the cops are right. You are under an oath. You are under an oath to do the right thing. And it just amazes me how people tell especially black men, always stay in line, stay in line. The truth is before I was a rapper, I remember how the cops acted. And I heard his comment about all cops are not wrong. I admit that. But one thing that my neighbor, who is a cop, said, he said something I never forget. Every cop knows who the bad cops are. So you know the people who are in the force who are doing the wrong thing, who have a long history of not being fair to black men and women and children. Because just a year ago, I tweeted for 10 hours straight situations where cops had hurt or killed black men, women, or children for 10 hours straight. So if you have these so-called good cops who know who the bad cops are, just like this situation in Baltimore, they know who these cops were. So why are these cops not brought to justice if you're such a good cop? If you really care about innocent lives, that shouldn't matter whether a black person killed a black person, whether a white person killed a black person, or whether it was a cop. It's justice, and it should not be blind. So I think what we should start doing is start recognizing those people who are being paid to uphold the law, and we always try to draw a parallel between what blacks are doing to blacks. If I slap you in your face right now and tell you, well, your brother slapped you, so it should be okay, it shouldn't really matter. See, what the problem is most of these public officials don't want to deal with their dirty laundry. This has been a problem all the time. And I'm very proud of these children. I'm very proud of these children who are in St. Louis and who are in Baltimore, who are doing the jobs that our parents were supposed to do. We were doing this in the 60s. We are still fighting the same problems that our parents were fighting in the 60s. And if we really did our job the right way, these kids wouldn't have to be out here on these streets.
Eldridge, would you like to have the opportunity to respond to David's comments?
Absolutely. He raises some key issues. And
Yes.
believe me, I understand where he's coming from because long before I was a cop, I was black, right?
Yes.
Still black. So I understand what that feels like, the uncomfortableness of being pulled over, what those motions are. But I also understand what it feels like to be a police officer in uniform and have to make snap decisions in an instant, wondering whether or not, if it doesn't go right, how that's going to pan out in the news and the media when you're well-intentioned in trying to do the right thing. So I understand both perspectives, but we have to look at really where these problems are coming from. The symptom really is what we're seeing in Baltimore and the riots, but the underlying cause is coming from poverty. It's coming from lack of education and a lack of an outlet or resource or economics really that play into it, where you have a depressed community, urban communities throughout the state that don't have the access and the ability to lift themselves up, where the government now has to step in and assist. And like you said, for many years, the civil rights movement fought for a lot of rights for people of color, right? One of the things that we fought for was the right to vote. And people want change and they're not happy with their elected officials, they got to go out and vote. And too often we see that when you look at minorities, they're the worst offenders when it comes to voting, right? You see communities where less than 50% are coming out or even registered, and half of them are not even coming out to vote. So if we want to start implementing change, it starts from the top down, and we can facilitate that by motivating people to go out to vote and empower themselves. That's the right way to fight, not to go to your own communities and start blowing up stores or setting them on fire and destroying things in your town, because that makes it even more difficult for administrators to move the city forward. We want to bring in investment to bring jobs to the community. How can we do that now when investors are sitting there thinking that the community is unstable? Why would they want to move there and invest when they're going to take a loss financially? What about the people that would have been working at that CVS today that are now unemployed because it's been set ablaze? We have to start looking at different ways to constructively move our cities forward and express through peaceful protests like we saw the last couple of days, more so in Maryland. That's what we need to see, not destroying our own backyard, because that only pulls everybody down.
David, you have a response?
I totally disagree. It's funny how people always want to criticize riots when people are living off the benefits of riots every day. The American Revolution was a Watts riot. The truth is, we have been peacefully protesting for years. We have been marching, sitting at counters. We've been doing that for years. It does not work. What riots are a beacon of light to tell people all around the world, this is what's happening in my community. We all know, would nobody care about what was happening in Baltimore unless that riot would have happened. Same thing in St. Louis. It's a beacon of light. And the truth is, regardless of what, the law is the law. And if these cops are wrong, and bro, it's been the same. I have cops that tell me to this day, when they don't have their badge on, they're getting pulled over every day. And the sick thing, and I would actually agree with you, kind sir, but white kids are committing the same amount of crimes. Statistically, I saw the statistics that came out in 2004. White kids are actually doing more crimes, but they're not. So if that is the case, if there is really a problem being made in snap decisions where they know not to kill people that look like them, why are they not having stats when it comes to white kids? So what we have to do is we have to admit that most people don't want to deal with the facts, that people don't see value in black life. Because we all know if something happens to one white kid, they'll shut the whole city down, bruh. So let's just be real. If people don't want to deal what the facts say, they should just stay out of the way. Nobody pays attention to black people beg, and we've been begging since we were in chains. We've been begging white folks since we have been in chains, and nothing happens until people fight back. And America always talks about peace protests, but America never peaceful protests. Everything America has ever gained has been through slavery, has been through killing people. Ask the Native Americans, ask the Africans, ask the Buffaloes. You know what I'm saying? Like, so people talk about all this peaceful protest. You show me in one case where power has ever been gained or respect has ever been gained by begging somebody who already has power over your community, who never has to be held accountable for any of the things they do. We were waiting for Mike Brown. We've been waiting for the deaths and the things that happened on the West Coast that happened in the South, black folks hanging from trees. We don't never get no justice when we wait through the system.
Gentlemen, let me continue.
You can't advocate for riots in the streets. That's just not the right way to go. That causes more death. It causes more injury, more property loss. That's not the way to go. And I can't believe that somebody would sit there and say that it's a positive thing to put our kids who are 15, 16 years old, to encourage them to go out there and confront law enforcement and put themselves in a precarious situation where they could end up in a box.
Okay, so obviously this relationship needs fixing, okay? And I'm going to get a response from both of you gentlemen, but how does that start? What can we as individuals do to trust and solve the issue between the police and the black community? We know there's a problem. Let's talk solutions.
Well, I think you're going to have to look at short-term and long-term goals. Okay. In the short term, one of the things that we might do, we've heard it in different media, is that we need to look at maybe body mics or body cameras.
Okay.
Transparency is key. If people can see what's happening as it's happening, that can help us understand the totality of the circumstances of whether the officer did the right thing or the wrong thing, right? And if the police are doing the wrong thing, then they should be held accountable, right? But if they're doing right, then we have to uphold them and support them when they're moving in the right direction.
And long-term?
And long-term, we need to start looking at economic development. That's what I spoke about before. Working out these educational issues, these poverty issues, starting to bring business and employment to our communities to uplift them. When I was mayor, one of the kids told me, he said, look, Mayor, I don't want to be on the corner dealing drugs, but if you can get me a job, I don't have a choice. I don't have a job, right? So we started working with developers to force training in local employment to make that impact and make that difference. That's the direction that we have to start heading. Otherwise, we're going to stay in the same position that
in the same circle, in the same cycle. David, I'll close out with you. What do you feel are some possible solutions you can share short or long term to this situation between police and the African American community?
Okay, really quickly about the body cams. Eric Garner, we had a connect. We still didn't get justice. So I think what needs to happen is, as a community, I will agree that we need to take control of our own situations. We need to go back to where we were before. Because I honestly feel like the worst thing that happened to black people wasn't slavery, it was integration. Because when we integrated, we gave away our power and we begged for the same people that oppressed us. We asked them to govern us and to also protect us. That had never happened. They don't have any respect for black life. So the black communities are going to have to start taking care of their own, building their own. The only thing that I fear about that is we did that earlier. Then we had what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had Black Wall Street. They say black people don't build community. We do. But every time we try to do something, it always gets teared. It was originally, we love riot. So I'll say the solutions is for us to start schooling our kids about themselves, about their history, about their God, and about their opportunities for economics. I think that's where we start.
And one thing I just want to say, he's right. We have to start building our communities, not tearing them down. And that's what these riots are doing. And let's be clear, this isn't just a short-term problem. This will have long-term damage for our communities for the future. He talked about historical references. You look at the Newark riots or any other riots throughout the country. They didn't just disappear and the city recover overnight.
Right.
That was 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Long-term ramifications here.
Right. So this is our backyard that he's advocating that we destroy. That's going to have a ripple effect for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much, David Banner. Thank you so much, Mr. Hawkins, for joining us. Thank you. Oh, David, are you still with us, David?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Do you have a response to Mr. Hawkins' comment just now, sir, as we wrap up?
I'll just tell him, it's amazing to me that everybody cares more about property, more about hurt cops cops being hurt than dead kids. If buildings have to burn in order for people to stop killing our kids, I'm with that. If cops got to get hurt in order for them to stop killing our kids, I'm with that. I just hope that our people, as well as white people, will care more about dead, innocent black men, women, and children than they do about property or somebody getting hurt. If they want peace in Baltimore and those dirty cops to justice, then it wouldn't have happened in the first place.
Now, I understand your position, but you don't want to perpetuate the same cycle. And you're not seeing the connection between business and poverty and the urbanization of our communities. And they're intertwined. They're not separate. Right? If you want to burn down businesses and make it harder to bring companies into your community, then you're forcing a lack of employment, right? You're condemning the community to live in a state of poverty. You're preventing investment from coming in. You're furthering the lack of education. You're causing the same thing you're trying to prevent by not moving forward in a positive fashion.
Gentlemen, I greatly appreciate your passion on both sides and your enthusiasm, and you've brought a lot to the table, both of you. Unfortunately, though, we have run out of time. I want to thank David Banner, Mayor Eldridge, our editor-in-chief, Vanessa DeLuca, and all of our guests who joined us today for the special presentation of Essence Debates Now. This show may be over, but we encourage you, our Essence family, to join us as we continue the search for hope and peace. Remember, we'll be back next Thursday with Essence Live, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on Essence.com. I'm your host, Dana Blair. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so very much.